All right, let's take a look at the top 5 hardest debuts in UFC history. Number 5. All right, Max Holloway comes in. Now, Max Holloway has to take on Dustin Poirier. And before any of you brand new fans tell me that just happened and Max wasn't debuting, no, excuse me, that was a rematch for the world title. So these guys both go on to be world champions. This was a debut years ago. Max was 4-0 at the time, but had only been fighting professional for 18 months. Now, Poirier was on like a 3 or 4 fight win streak within the UFC and was 11-1 overall. But because both of these guys were somewhat unknown, boom, they get matched up. So I believe at number 5, Max Holloway had a very hard debut. Number 4, Mayhem Miller draws right into George St-Pierre. Now, I have a history with Mayhem Miller in that he was my first fight ever in the pros. Had some amateur fight. He was my first fight in the pros. We fought at 185 pounds. And Mayhem went on a very good run, but dropped down to 170. And at 170, he was ranked number 10 in the world. So he debuts in the UFC with a number 10 ranking. He's got to take on a top guy. That guy happened to be the greatest to have ever done it, George St-Pierre. I believe that qualifies Mayhem Miller for a very hard debut. Number 3, Liz Carmouche walks right into a world title fight against Ronda Rousey. I don't know how much I need to elaborate on this, because if you went and looked at the division, in all fairness, Liz was the right lady for the job. Liz had been beating everybody. She's looking good. By the way, her grappling's pretty solid. She's strong. She's rugged. She'd had a lot of rounds. I mean, she checked a lot of boxes. But there's something to be said for momentum. And I don't know if an athlete ever had as much momentum in a lifetime as Ronda had in a short career. Liz Carmouche had a very hard debut. The second hardest debut of all time goes to James Toney. Now, I'm well aware that he was a decorated fighter and a boxer and a tough guy and a champion, but MMA is a different sport. No different than if you brought in a world champion from somebody else to this day. Bring in Kobe Bryant, just by example. Well, he had plenty of world championships and he was awful athletic. I get it. This is a different sport, and I think that we learned that when James Toney went head-to-head with the former heavyweight champion of the world, Randy Couture. James was taken down instantly with what's known as a low single. A low single has never been used in MMA before because a low single would not work in MMA. But James Toney was so limited in his skills that Randy was able to hit it, take him down. James never got up. James definitely qualifies as a guy who had a tough debut. And number 1, hardest debut in UFC history has got to go to Pat Cummings, who not only took on Daniel Cormier, he took Daniel Cormier on 8 days' notice. And the story for this was really great. Pat had a manager who was also training him, who he was also living with at the time, Ryan Parsons. And Pat was a barista. He was working at a coffee shop, and I want to say it was even a Starbucks, but I could be wrong, a local coffee shop. And Pat had ridden his bike there. Bike's leaned up, and he's working. And Ryan gets this call from Dana White. Ryan's got to get a hold of Pat. He can't get a hold of Pat. He calls the coffee shop that says, oh, no, he's working. No personal calls. Click. Ryan has to pull his car through the drive-thru, get Pat at the window, hand him the telephone that's Dana White. Pat says, I'll accept the fight. I used to train with Cormier. In fact, one day I ran him out of the practice room. I'll take that fight. I don't care if it's 8 days. I'll take the fight. Dana says, great. Find your boss. Tell him I quit. I'm in the UFC. Pat Cummings qualifies as the guy, in my opinion, that had the hardest UFC debut of all time.
Thanks for liking and subscribing to the bad guy of YouTube. Chael Sonnen, he's a-coming, breaking down your fighting news. Better subscribe to the bad guy right here on YouTube. Bringing new content every single day. The stories of fighting. true insider with his own special way. He